The Arctic Circle. Under the ice sits one of the biggest reserves of natural gas known to man. To get at it will take a state-of-the-art gas refinery, a giant metal monster. And this is it. Weighing in at a staggering 35,000 tons, it's an immovable giant. The trouble is, it's been built in Spain, 5,000 kilometers from the Arctic Circle. Now all they've got to do is get it there. Hammerfest, Norway, deep in the Arctic Circle. This is the world's most northerly town, unbearably cold except for a few short summer months. But this small fishing port is about to be transformed, because deep beneath the Arctic seas off the coast of Hammerfest sits one of the largest known reserves of natural gas in the world. 190 billion cubic meters of methane is buried kilometers beneath the frozen Arctic Sea, a vast untapped reservoir of energy. It's summer, and engineers are drilling over 3 kilometers into the seabed. From here, they've got to pipe the gas 160 kilometers beneath the sea to Hammerfest, and then turn it into liquid fuel. To do that, you need the largest and most advanced gas refineries ever built. But here's the problem. How do you construct a giant high-tech gas plant in the biting Arctic winter? You don't. You build it in Spain. Cadiz in southern Spain. For 2 years, 3,000 workers have been building Statoil's massive refinery here. 4,000 tons of pipes, 1,100 kilometers of electric cable, 35,000 cubic meters of fireproofing and insulation, 10,000 tons of industrial pumps, gas tanks and other equipment. This is gigantic, even for an Arctic gas rig, and it's called Snow White. July, and work on the rig is nearly finished. Now comes the biggest engineering challenge of all. Snow White has been built in the shape of a rectangle to fit perfectly onto the world's largest cargo ship. But how do you get her on board? No crane in the world is big enough to lift such a monster. Instead, Snow White must be towed out to meet the ship in the middle of Cadiz Harbour. It's a risky venture, even for the experts. It's just before dawn, and the legendary Blue Marlin, one of the world's largest heavy lift vessels, arrives in Cadiz Harbour right on schedule. The Marlin is a highly unusual cargo ship. She's designed to be self-sinking, enabling her to load incredible weights. And this doesn't come cheap. The Marlin costs around €250,000 a day, and the clock starts ticking the moment she drops anchor. Now that she's in Cadiz, every second counts. This extraordinary vessel has a revolutionary design, enabling it to carry phenomenal loads. Its hull contains over 70 ballast tanks. Using a series of huge 2.5-ton pumps, the tanks are flooded. The whole ship then sinks 9 meters below the surface, so that a load can float above the submerged deck. Once the gas plant is exactly in position, the captain will start to pump out the tanks, lifting the ship back out of the water with Snow White on top. The early light reveals the Blue Marlin sitting low in the harbour. On board, Captain Posnax makes his final checks. Snow White is floating perfectly in the water. On the deck of the Marlin, a tall metal post has been erected. When the ship is sunk, the post remains visible above the surface of the water. This is the guide post, used by Arnie Reed to steer the rig into the exact correct spot. It's vital that Snow White is perfectly positioned over the Marlin. If not, there's a danger the ship will keel over as it lifts out of the water. As its massive ballast tanks are pumped dry, the mighty Blue Marlin slowly rises from the bottom of Cadiz Harbour. And as it does, the world's first floating gas refinery is lifted majestically out of the water. Together, the Marlin and the rig weigh a staggering 100,000 tons. It's an awesome sight. The world's strangest cargo ship, taking on board an extraordinary passenger. This state-of-the-art gas purification plant will travel up the Atlantic coast of Spain and France, through the English Channel, into the North Sea, and on into the Norwegian Sea, finally docking 11 days later, if all goes well, at Hammerfest, Norway. The Marlin makes stately progress up the coast of Portugal, but the voyage has only just begun. Hammerfest, Norway, in the Arctic Circle, is the world's most northerly town. They've already prepared much of the Statoil gas processing plant, and now they're waiting for the final piece in the jigsaw, the giant gas refinery known as Snow White, built in Spain and finally making its way towards Hammerfest on the cargo ship, the Blue Marlin. After 11 days at sea, the Marlin, weighing 100,000 tons with its massive load on board, finally moves into view around the fjords. For the engineers at Hammerfest, this is the moment of truth. Snow White must be guided into her permanent home. 4 massive winches begin to pull 35,000 tons of floating gas refinery into dock. This is the most advanced gas refinery in the world. It cost a staggering 400 million euros to build, was a mammoth effort to deliver, and there is no room for error. Incredibly, there's only ½ metre clearance on either side of the rig. The dock has been lined with wood, and the wood has been coated with 3 tons of grease. But will it be enough? The rig is moving surprisingly fast. Snow White moves further towards the buffers, until at last, and in one piece, the giant rig comes to rest. The jigsaw is complete. The vast gas reserves buried beneath the frozen Arctic Sea can now be tapped. By the first ever remote-controlled subsea gas production facility in the world. And at its heart is the world's most advanced gas refinery, built 5,000 kilometers away in Spain.